Welcome to Nike Town, where we're here for the Elle Golding concert. Ellie's hugely passionate about running. She took part this weekend in Run to the Beat, and she's here today to give an exclusive concert for some of the Nike runners. Someone else who's very passionate about running is Paula Radcliffe, and we're very lucky to be joined by her here today to talk about mainly a brilliant race at the weekend. You qualified for the Olympics finally. That must feel pretty good.
Yes, I mean, I think honestly, I would have rather won the race and run a little bit faster. But given where I was a month, 6 weeks ago, the main objective was to go in, run decent, get the qualifying time, and then just be able to prepare much better and be in a much better place going into the Olympics next year. And I think that was kind of mission accomplished, so we can get on with that now.
I did get a chance to see the race, and I thought you looked brilliant. You looked incredibly strong. You went out quite hard, though, and that's something that you've spoken about since. You kind of went with that 2:20 pace, but perhaps it was a little bit of a mistake.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, basically, post-pregnancy, I had a little bit of an overactive thyroid, which can happen to a lot of women post-pregnancy, and it kind of settles on its own. But in the meantime, my body weight had dropped a lot, and I just wasn't able to do enough of the hard tempo runs and track sessions and really kind of get work on threshold work. So I did a lot of running, and I never had to miss training. So I felt strong, and even in the first half I didn't feel like I was running too fast, but looking back with hindsight, obviously I must have been, because I positive split the wrong way. So it probably would have been more sensible, and I probably could have run in the 222s if I'd gone out in 71 instead of in 70. But it's about racing as well, and I wanted to cover the moves, and Florence went out that fast, so I kind of ran with her, and I was enjoying it as well, because with all the problems this year I haven't been able to get out and race, and yeah, with hindsight I probably needed a few more races as well, but I couldn't go out and race in the middle of all the thyroid stuff because it just would have been rubbish. So I think I was just maybe a bit carried away with, hey, I feel good, I'm back out racing, I'm having fun, and I probably just pushed on a little bit too much.
You raced at the 10K in London back in June time and ran 33 minutes, and for you that was like shock horror, that's a terrible time. But just a few months later, you ran a marathon at not too similar pace to the 10K pace.
I think I actually went through faster than I ran in London or something, but close to anyway. And it felt so much different, it felt so much more controlled. But I mean, I knew that. I mean, looking back, I was hoping I'd be okay in the race in London, but I knew that my body just wasn't right somewhere. And then at least we knew what it was when it happened, and it actually settled down very fast afterwards. I just probably should have known that straight after the treatment for my back it was going to get worse and then better, and I wouldn't have raced then. But these things happen.
Talk us through the point in the race at around about 15 kilometres when you thought, I know from a sort of spectator's point of view, I was thinking, oh no, I hope she hasn't kind of really popped, because sometimes in a marathon you go with that pace, and when you pop big time and you're not going to come back from it. So you made the decision. You said, actually, I feel okay, but this pace is a little bit hard. I'm going to have to back off. I'm going to have to accept that I'm not going to win this race, but I'm going for the qualifying time.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you have to learn to do in the marathon. Otherwise, it can be really, really messy. So I think I probably have learned it in training, and I've honestly not really hit that point apart from in Athens when I just hit the wall and had no more fuel left. But usually I'm pretty good at gauging kind of my body, and I guess it's because I'm used to almost redlining it when I've been trying to run fast times and just going and pushing as hard as I can without pushing it too far over that limit. So you kind of learn your body telling you before you're in distress that if you keep going at that pace you will be in distress. So you just kind of I just let her go. And yeah, my ego didn't want to, but I knew that otherwise it was going to be messy. So I felt still in control, but I just knew that if I covered that, it wasn't going to be comfortable, and I wasn't going to achieve what I was there to achieve. So
Steve Graham was commentating on the race for BBC, and he said this is possibly one of Paula's most important races of her career. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think I'm probably. What illustrated that to me was my mum and dad came out to watch the race, and my mum turned up on the Friday with a really bad cold. And I'm like, Mum, this isn't just any other race. I have to get this one right. I have to run well, I have to qualify. I've got everything lined up afterwards, and it all kind of runs into next year. So I'm really sorry, I can't see you till after the race.
Sorry, Mum. She would have understood that.
Yeah, she did understand.
Yeah. But what did you feel like on Monday morning when you woke up, when you kind of put that, okay, I didn't win, I didn't quite get the position I wanted, but did you kind of wake up with I've done it, okay?
Yeah, I think it was more when I finished, because actually I finished and it hurts because you're pushing it in the race, but I recovered really quickly and there were a lot of positives in it. I mean, cardiovascularly, I felt like I could have gone much faster. I just hadn't done the training to get my legs turning over at top speed, so that was kind of why I lost it a bit, and also efficiency-wise because I was compensating slightly for my foot. But on the plus side, my other foot that I had all the reconstruction on was the best it's ever been. Even in training, it was better than that. So I was really, really pleased with that. And my whole body has recovered very, very well afterwards. And I kind of feel like if I wasn't getting the surgery, I could be straight back into training now. So that's really encouraging.
Marathon running is so tough, and some people will be sort of looking on going, oh, how far can she push her body? But at this stage, you're still running incredibly fast. 2:23:46 is probably still up there with one of the fastest times this year. Not too far off it. It's not a million miles away. And it is about, at this moment, keeping your body in the right shape to be able to do the training and then produce the times.
Yeah, and I think at this stage it's just about being healthy. And I think I've kind of come to this almost an appreciation thing that, at some point my body is going to have had enough, but until it does, I'm just going to get out there and enjoy it and just run as much as I can and get as much out of it. And then you can't really have regrets afterwards because you accept that at some point it's going to happen, and until then, it's not like you sit every day scared that it's going to happen, because it will at some point, so you may as well just enjoy it until it does.
And looking ahead to London, which is now, I can't do the maths, what is it, 11 months away? Or
probably 10 and a half, isn't it? Yeah, it's the 5th of August.
Do you get that kind of feeling in your tummy when you think about it, that kind of like, it's anxiety, or are you just kind of relishing the thought of, let me get on with my training and I want to get on that start line?
I think now I'm just looking forward to it. And I think you can get to the point where you're almost scared and you want to hold it off, but no, I want to get on with it and get moving towards it.
And what do you think of the course? Is it a course that suits you?
That's hard, because when I ran on it, I was not in good shape, and I don't really actually remember that much about it because I was so worried about what was happening to me and why I didn't feel right. So I probably would like another chance to run around it, but I certainly think it's a good course. And a lot of it's familiar because it is. I mean, I've raced how many times on the streets of London and things. So I think that's the biggest thing. I certainly don't think it's a bad course, and the biggest factor for me is going to be the crowds and the support out there.
Talking about that advantage, so many people talk about, racing, competing on home soil, whether it's athletics, football, whatever. How much of an advantage do you think you'll get from the crowd and running on home soil?
It's hard to say exactly how much, but I would think it's at least 5%, in terms of the fact that 90% of that crowd is shouting for British athletes, and more than that, it's a whole familiarity thing. So it's like streets that you know, it's a language that you know, it's food that you know, it's in your own country, and you want to do well because of that. And the atmosphere just feels that much more magical because it is in your home country. So I think all of those things come together, and it's hard to quantify exactly how much, but it's a definite advantage.
It's interesting looking at sort of times from major championships, whether it be World Championships, Olympics. The times always tend to be much slower than they are in the big city marathons, which is kind of quite interesting. So from your point of view, having run 2:23:46 just now, that actually technically would be a winning time in the last two Olympics. So that's an interesting point. Why does that happen? Is there some sort of Olympic or major championship psychological effect on the athlete?
I think there's a little bit that. Some of it's the conditions. I've just been very hot. So in Athens, I think it was the conditions and the course. In Beijing, the conditions weren't that bad, but I think there was just a lot of people watching each other. A lot of people who were favourites that year just didn't get it right. So it was just, I don't want to say weaker, but it was definitely won in a slower time. And some of it can just be that people are so busy watching each other and they don't want to make a mistake because it's the Olympics. That's why it's been slower. I mean, when I ran in Helsinki in the World Championships in 2005, that was still a pretty fast time, but essentially that was just because I pushed it. So I think it just depends on how it's run. And the thing with Britain in the summer as well, and an 11 a.m. start, it could be 34 degrees or it could be 17 and quite comfortable. So in terms of predicting the winning time, that's going to be very hard.
Both conditions are actually probably going to suit you because you're happy in the heat and you're happy in the cold.
I don't mind either, but it will definitely affect the times. But I think all you can do is get yourself there in as good a shape as possible. And to be honest, no one cares about the times in the Olympics. It's just about racing it.
And for people who kind of really perhaps don't understand marathon running or marathon training, so you've now got like the 2:23 and a bit in your pocket, and you're kind of thinking, for the Olympics, who knows? But let's say you're looking for 2:20, maybe just below. You kind of go 3.5 minutes. That's not a lot over 26.2 miles, but it is quite a lot, isn't it? And how do you get rid of that extra 3.5-4 minutes?
It is and it isn't. I mean, I think looking at it, I threw away 3 minutes in the second half of the race, just because I wasn't quite fit enough to sustain that pace. So it is a big gap, but I know that there are so many areas that can be improved for next year that can definitely be done. Just need to stay healthy and be able to do it. And the marathon, when it goes fast. So you can lose a huge amount of time in a short period, but you can also gain it back if you just regain that efficiency and turnover rate.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? You've got the engine. It's like, okay, let's keep the bodywork intact.
At this stage, for me, it's the big thing is being healthy enough to do the training, which I know you have to do. And it's all very well people saying, you just run less miles and you wrap yourself up a little bit and cotton wool. It doesn't work like that, because you have to do certain things and certain amounts of training to be able to perform at the level we want to. So you do kind of take that risk a little bit of being able to do the training and not breaking down so that you can get into that shape. But that's why I've said it's kind of probably more sensible to be in 2:17, 2:18 shape and healthy, rather than trying to get into 2:15 shape and breaking down.
Talking about that 2:15.25 shape, kind of very shocked news, I think, in the athletics world last week. I personally was kind of totally shocked. You're like, okay, what's going on? Someone's gone mad here. But your 2:15.25 world record that stood for 8 years, now it's no longer a world record, but a world best. It's just kind of like, okay.
I know, I mean, obviously I'm upset about it and angry about it, but it's not been my decision. There's nothing I can do about it, other than I am going to go and meet with the IAAF next week and try and talk to them about it and just try and reason a little bit, because I honestly believe that day it didn't make any difference, or like 20-30 seconds difference. I definitely would have run under 2:16 anyway. And a lot of times I've got as much out of myself by running against myself and running hard as I have ever.
It's obvious because we see that men so many times when you go out.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think for some people, they can't do that, can't push themselves to the limit on their own. So then it might make a bigger difference, but I don't believe it did for me. But
I think a lot of people don't think it did.
Yeah, and I know that the 2:17.42, which is now the official world record, I wasn't in anywhere near the same shape that year as I was in 2003. So that's how I know that. And at the end of the day, when women run in mixed races, you still run on your own two legs and you still run the time.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be something that's so hard to enforce. And I think that if they were going to bring that rule in, they should have brought it in when the whole world best changed to world records back in 2000, 2001, whenever it was. But they didn't. So how can you retroactively go back and take away a world record that is a world record?
And I can imagine it'd be a huge shock, because it was one of the most stunning, most amazing performances ever seen by a woman running marathons.
I worked really hard for it, and I kind of feel like I fluctuate between saying, "Hey, I worked really hard for that," and "No, you can't take it away from me." It's between thinking, "Well, so what? Everyone knows I ran it anyway."
Yeah, exactly.
We know. It's kind of, I fluctuate between that, but I do think it's just going to complicate everything, because so many road races are mixed anyway. So what are you going to now just turn around to all those women and say, "Sorry, it doesn't count"? And how is it any different from men having really strong pacemakers running with them to 30, 35k, or even in some cases buses in front or cars in front with the doors open to keep the wind? I mean, to me, that is more of an advantage.
Definitely, absolutely.
And even going back in history, are you going to go and take the 4-minute mile away because one guy jogged and then started pacing on the third lap?
pressure.
You can't do it. You've got to draw the line somewhere. And
that's the great thing about running it. Unlike cycling, where you genuinely get that real draft benefit. Although in the race you didn't actually draft, you had the guys running alongside you.
And I was really conscious of that because I really didn't want. I knew I was going to run fast. I didn't want anyone to ever question it. So I was really conscious the whole time. I always ran alongside the guys. I never spoke to them. We never spoke beforehand, and I was racing them.
Just one of those things, I guess. It'd be interesting to see what the IAAF say when you have a meeting with them. Just moving on briefly and to finish, talking about another runner, Mo Farah, that everyone's talking about. I remember him years ago working in the sweatshop when he was just this little guy, and wow, what a runner he's become. But you've also been part of that to a degree.
Well, I mean, I think he's done it. He's the one who's worked hard, and he's the one who's put in all of the sacrifices and the hard work, and he totally deserves everything this year, but at the same time I'm so proud of it.
It's so wonderful to watch, isn't it? What do you think his chances are sort of in 10, 11 months' time? I mean, he's done so incredibly well. He's our sort of one of our greatest ever male runners, distance runners, but 2012 is going to be a lot more pressure and a lot different.
It is, but he can handle it, and I think I don't want to be one of these people who says, Paula says Mo should do this, and Paula says Mo should do that, because Mo knows what he's doing, and he's doing it right. The only thing I would say to him is don't try and add too much more. Like, obviously you build each year on the platform of the year before, so definitely he's going to be a bit better next year, but don't go and try and add loads more. He only needs to be that little bit better, and he's still going to win it. So I think he just needs to look after himself, stay chilled, stay relaxed, and he's very good at doing that, and almost let Alberto worry about the things and just get on with staying healthy, staying grounded, which he is always going to do, and just fingers crossed he can get there and do the job, because he's definitely capable of it.
Yeah, it certainly looks like he is. Will you be doing some training in Kenya with him at the same time?
I'm not sure if he's going to be there. I would imagine he'll be there for some of it, but hopefully. I mean, I only can do Mo's easy runs with him now anyway.
So that's your plan now for the rest of the winter? You'll be spending some time in France, some time in Kenya?
No, for the rest of the winter I'll be most of the time either in Monaco or I'll try something in Kenya, and then maybe February, March we might still go to the States, and then hopefully do some half marathons and 10Ks and things.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you, and we wish you so much luck for 2012.
Thank you.